Hi, and welcome to our next level 2 statistical inference video. This is the first video we're going to chat about sampling. We've got 3 videos on sampling. Now remember our statistical cycle, PPDAC. We've written a problem and we've developed a plan. So now we're up to collecting the data, which is where we collect the sample. But the sampling is not just going to come into the data, it's also going to come into the plan. And at some stage later on, it's also going to come into the conclusion, but we'll talk about that in another video. Because in the plan, we have to discuss what sampling method we picked, why have we picked it, how big a sample we're using, and why is that. So the sampling is not only collecting the data, but it's going to go into our planning. Right, let's get started with some keywords. The population, or some people call it the target population, is the entire group a researcher is interested in. The population does not have to be human. For example, we could pick all Year 12 students at Altair College as our population, but we could be working on all spotted brown kiwi in the Otago region. Now, when we examine or survey the entire population, we call it a census. In New Zealand, for humans, we do a census every 4 to 5 years where we send out information and gather a survey for everybody living in this country. It's usually too expensive and time consuming to conduct a census and go and get information from every member, especially if we're doing Kiwi in the Otago region. It would be very difficult to do. So instead we collect a sample from the population. Now a sample is a subset or a small group of the entire population. The purpose of a sample is to provide statistical information about the population. Now, an inference is where we use a sample to make a judgment on the chosen population. Since this topic is statistical inference, basically the entire topic, the assessment, is about collecting a sample and using information from that sample to make an inference or judgment on the population. All right, now a carefully chosen sample can be used to represent the population. The sample should reflect the characteristics of the population from which it is taken. This will lead to an inference which is reliable and trustworthy. If, however, the sample is biased, which means the sample does not represent the population well, then the inference is likely to be unreliable and untrustworthy. There are many different ways to collect a sample, many ways. We're going to just focus on 2 techniques. And the first is called simple random sampling, and the second is called stratified sampling. These are coming up in our next few videos. For both of them, we need to obtain a list of the entire population called the sampling frame. Then we need to use a random number generator to select our sample. Now, because we're using a random number generator, every item in the population has the same chance of being selected. Now that's vital because in part of our planning, we need to discuss why we're using this technique. And you need to make sure at some stage you do discuss that every item in the population has the same chance of being selected. Okay, let's talk about our sample size. Well, statisticians have shown that the smallest sample size to be effective is the magic number of 30. We're going to go a little bit more than 30, and we're going to ask you to take a sample of at least 50 in each group. Now, why are we going to 50? 50 is, well, it's bigger than the minimum sample size, but it also does a couple of things. One, the larger sample size it is, hopefully the more representative of the population. But also, if we've got more data values, we can explore things like the distribution and the shape and look for patterns and trends and things like that easier. So we're going to suggest at least 50 in each group. Right, so we're going to use a software program called NZGrapher. We'll show you how to do that in the next couple of videos. That's already got a built-in random number generator to select items at random. Right, well that's our first video on sampling. So thanks very much for tuning in.